Hello children, how are you all? Hope you guys are fine and are staying safe at home. So welcome once again for the online class for the academic year 2020 and 21. So today we are going to start the science class, the first chapter of the science class, which we are going to deal from the first chapter in physics. It's a very interesting chapter regarding the measurement. So before we go inside the chapter, I'd like to give a small warm-up session for you all. So you can see here, I'm going to narrate you a small story of a transport, how the transport has been evolved from ages. What do you see in this first picture? So you can see some sort of old age person who is carrying a walking stick and you know carrying some bags, and along with him some troops are walking over there, right? Oh, in those days, you know, people used to actually walk if they want to travel from one place to another place. They used to go on a walk only because they were not having much mode of transport to travel from one place to another place. Then slowly, what they did, they started evolving and they designed something called, you can see here, what is this actually? This is a ship, right? So they actually designed a small boat by looking at the fish, the shape of the fish itself, and then they made it into a bigger one so that they can travel from one place to another place in the sea routes, right? Then what are all the innovations happened? There are a lot more other innovations happened. As you can see, the invention of wheel. This is one of the most important thing which occurred after a long decade. So the invention of wheel made a great impact, and it made people to travel from one place to another place in a very easier way. So it actually reduced their times. So what they used to do is they either use a bullock cart or horse cart. As you can see here, this man has attached the horse with the horse cart, and it has got different wheels around it, right? So this saved a lot of their time if they want to travel some shorter distances from one place to another place. Then slowly in the 19th century, the invention of steam engine happened. So with the invention of steam engine, this made a big revolution, a big impact, where they can able to easily travel from one place to another place, even for longer distances, right? So the invention of wheel, actually this helped them to travel only the shorter distances. Like for example, if you want to go to any market, okay, either you will go by walk. If it is too near, then easily you can reach. But if you want to, I mean, if it is a little bit far away, Then what you will do, either in those days you can either travel in a bullock cart or a horse cart. Okay, but if you want to travel from one country to another country, since the distance will be too long, it will be difficult for you if you try to travel using a bullock cart or a horse cart, right? It will take more days. So the steam engine helps you to travel from one place to another place at a shorter time. It reduces your time where you can able to easily travel from one place to another place. Now, why I'm discussing about the story of a transport over here? See, this is very, very important, which is actually related to our lesson. And one more thing, nowadays we people are traveling by car, and we also fly to different countries using aeroplanes. So this actually, increase the speed with which you can able to travel from one place to another place, and this reduces lot of our time. This saves a lot of our time if you want to travel from one place to another place. Now, not only this, people have invented so many things, jets, and rockets, so where they can travel to different planets as well. You might have heard about Mars rover, right? Mars rover is something like a small toy shaped robot, where what the scientists did, they placed it in a rocket, they sent it to the Mars orbit, and they successfully landed that rover in Mars, so that it travels on the land of Mars, and it collects the pictures and it sends it to us. So see how much advancement happened over the years. So we can also travel from one planet to another planet. So just imagine, okay? So that much advanced we have developed into. So how this actually happened? All this happened because of the development of measurement of distances. Now, let's move on to the lesson. The chapter name is Motion and Measurement of Distances. Hope you might have understood why I was discussing about the different modes of transport. So what transport tells you? It helps you to measure the distances. If you know the distance exactly, you will decide, okay, which mode of transport I can able to choose to travel from one place to another place. And you can also determine the speed with which you can travel from one place to another place. So here the motion decides you about the speed and the distance which you can able to measure when you want to travel from one place to another place. So our learning objective will be, in this module we are going to learn about basics of measurement. So this is very, very important. So we are going to learn how to measure different objects, and at the end of this lesson we are going to learn about measuring the length and breadth of different objects or different places, and also some basic measurements we are going to discuss. Now, there are few questions which I would like to throw. upon you. How did people know how far they have traveled? How will you know whether you can walk all the way to your school or whether you will need to take a bus or a rickshaw to reach your school? When you need to purchase something, is it possible for you to walk to the market? How will you know answer to all these questions? What instrument or what category or what criteria you will choose to measure the distances, right? So all these are connected to the distance. Like if you want to come to school, you have to measure the distance from your home to school. Then only you can able to decide whether you can come to school by walk or you need to take a bus or an auto rickshaw to reach your school, right? And how to measure the distance, how far they have traveled. So again, what matters? The distance matters. And even if you want to purchase something, you have to visit market means you need to first measure the distance, how far it is from your home to the marketplace. So all these questions, where it leads you to the distance. Okay, now this helps you to think, okay, that distance is a very very important criteria which you need to measure so that you can able to take a better option for you if you want to reach to a particular destination in a short span of time or in a long span of time. Now, sometimes there are objects whose length or width we need to know. Let us take an example of your classroom as well. In your classroom, there will be chairs and desks which will help you to, comfortably sit and observe the classes. But sometimes, what actually happens when you're among with your friends. Even I have done like that. When I used to sit with my friend, since I'm very lean, uh, for me adjustment is very easy. But imagine if a fat person comes and sit next to me, or maybe one of my fat friend, if he comes and sit next to me, what he will do? He will try to accommodate more than half of the chair or more than half of the space. So I will get only small space to sit, right? So sometimes we used to have a fight also. We will tell to our teacher, Miss, see, this man is occupying my space too. Ask him to, move away and sit. Ask him to give me some space also. Like this, how many of you would have done? So I hope everybody would have, has come to this kind of situation where you would have fought or complained about your friend, and you would have complained to the teacher so that you can able to exactly occupy the space which you are provided with, right? Because in a bench there might be two students or there might be four students who can accommodate based on the length and breadth of the bench. Now if this situation arrives, what a teacher will do? The first thing a teacher will do is he or she will measure the length of this bench, right? So what she will do now, she will take an inch tape, okay, and she will bring an inch tape, as you can see here. So she will exactly measure half of the distance of this bench or this desk. So you can see here, for example, if this desk is of 60 centimeter, what is the half of the 60 centimeter? 30 centimeter is the half of this desk. So a teacher, what he or she will do, she will first measure the half of the distance, half of the length of this disc, and she will draw a line where it will decide or it will actually tell you the half of the distance of this disc, so that you know you can able to easily share the exact requirement, exact position which you need to sit, right? So if you do this also, you can avoid fighting with your friends. So you will come to know, okay, this is my boundary, So please, you can tell your friend, please don't cross this boundary. Up to this, I will sit, and beyond this boundary, you can sit. So we can avoid all this conflict if you exactly measure, right? Not only here, there are a lot of other instances as well. How many of you would have seen cricket? I hope many of you are fond of cricket game as well. In a cricket game, there will be boundary, a circular boundary where they would have attached their rope, right? So what is the purpose of the rope? The rope will help you to determine the boundary line. So if the ball crosses the boundary line, then only the umpire will say, okay, he has hit a 4 or a 6, right? So the boundary line helps you, to determine the exact position. So how the boundary line will be defined? It will be defined by measuring some distances. They would have kept some criteria. Up to this distance, it should be the boundary line. Okay. So likewise, this measurement will help you to determine the length and breadth of different objects. So what are all the different ways with which you can measure? One thing I told you, if you have inch tape, you can use the inch tape like how your teacher did to measure the length or breadth of the disc. Similarly, if you don't have inch tape with you, what can be done? What you can simply do is, in those days, people used to play gilli danda. You know what is gilli danda? It is similar to cricket. There will be a long stick and a small ball. Okay, that gilli danda, if you have, that also you can use to measure the distance. Okay, or you can also try with rope if you have a thread. Okay, what you can do, you can measure the thread. I mean, you can keep the thread on the disc, and exactly at the half of the position you can cut the thread and you can able to measure it. Okay, so a lot of ways which you can apply to measure the distances. Okay, now as I said already, there are many occasions where we need to measure the lengths and distances. So you might have understood, right, the purpose of why we are actually focusing on measuring the distances, okay, or measuring the length. So I'll give you some instances where you need to use to measure the distance. For example, if you visit a tailoring shop, if you visit a tailor needs to measure the length of a cloth. So if you have purchased a new cloth for your festival like Diwali or Eid or whatever, Christmas, so obviously you will purchase the cloth, right? So what the first thing a tailor will do, a tailor will have an inch tape in handy with him. So what he will do, he will measure the length of the kurta or the length of the shirt or length of the cloth, so that he will come to know exactly the enough length required to stitch the kurta. Otherwise what will happen, if you don't measure, he won't be able to exactly stitch you the proper length. Okay, sometimes it may come short or it may go too long, right? So will you be able to wear such kind of kurta, right? No, right? People will start making fun of you. So the measurement of length of the cloth is very very important, not only for the perfect fit, even you can able to save the cloth. You can able to buy the cloth which is actually required for you, the meter which is actually required for you. Similarly, if you are trying to make a cardboard or cupboard in your cupboard in your house, so what the carpenter will do, carpenter, before making the cupboard, he will measure the width and height of the cupboard, so that he will be able to guess, or he will be able to come into a conclusion on how much wood is needed or required to make its door, right? Similarly, a farmer also, he will measure the length and breadth, or yeah, length and breadth or the area of his land, so that he will come to know how much seed he can sow or how much water is needed for his crops. So all these are some criterias where the measurement of distances will come into effect. Now, I'll explain you what is actually measurement. So, we see that measurement means the comparison of an unknown quantity. This is very, very important. You see here, unknown quantity. Like before, I gave an example, right, about the table, the desk of your classroom. So before, you were not aware of the exact length of the desk. So what your friend did, he occupied little bit of your space as well. So you guys had a rift. So after your teacher did the measurement, she actually told you the half of the measurement and the full measurement as well, right? So before measuring the length of the disc, it was an unknown quantity. We don't know how much length of the table was, or we don't know how much the length of the cloth. So what we are trying to do with the help of the measurement, we can able to compare from an unknown quantity with some known quantity. There are some measurements which is available like meter, kilometer, square meter, inch, like this. Okay, so based on those known quantity, we are coming into a conclusion that this particular table is of this much length, or this particular shirt requires this much length of meter of cloth. So we come into a conclusion. So this known fixed quantity is what we call it as a unit. Okay, just now which I discussed now. Kilometer, meter, square meter, liter, all these are the units of measurement. So unit will help you to measure the known quantity. So how do we express the measurement? So we can express the measurements in two parts. One part is through a number. So we come to know some number, right? 30 centimeter or 5 inch, like that. Okay. And after the number, the other part which you are using is going to be the unit of the measurement. Like for example, if you measure the length of the room, if you use after measuring the length of the room, if it is 12 lengths of your foot, so you measured using your foot. So if it comes around 12 lengths of your foot, then that number 12 is considered as a number. And foot length, because you have used foot, right, you have not used any inch tape. So since you have used foot, so the foot length, we have to describe the unit as foot length. So foot length is the unit selected for measurement. So it is not mandatory that you have to use only this unit or that unit. You are flexible to use any unit, but make sure the easiest unit which is required for you to measure any object's length or a distance, that you can select to avoid an error or any confusion. Okay, next I'll give you one activity. So what you have, each one of you have to do is, you have to measure the length and breadth of your living room. Okay, everybody will have a living room. So what you can just do is, using your foot itself, you have to measure the length of the room and also the width of, that is the breadth of your room. And what you just have to do is, you can discuss with your friends online. So whatever the length and breadth they have recorded, so you can ask them and you can fill it in this table. Okay, so that will be your activity. So with this, I'll conclude today's session. So before conclusion, I'll again make a quick recap on what we have discussed. So what all the things we discussed? We discussed about measurement. So what is a measurement? Measurement means the comparison of an unknown quantity with some known quantity. and the fixed unit, the fixed quantity is what we call it as a unit. And how will we measure? The result of a measurement can be expressed in two parts. One is you have to write a number, and the other part is you have to write the unit of measurement. Okay. Now there is an assessment for you. I have given few questions, okay, in this slide. So go through those questions, and in your classwork note or any notebook, if you have, you just pick a notebook. You maintain one notebook for a science, okay, and you just go through these questions and try to write the answer on your own. Okay, you can refer the PPT slides as well, and you can pick the answer, or you try to give the answer on your own. So what is the first question? What is a measurement? And in the second question, what I have asked, how many parts are there in a measurement? So which I already described in the recap as well. And the third question is a general question. Why do we need to measure the distance? So you need to give the reason on your own. So at most, I mean, most of the answers you can try to write on your own. This alone, since it's a direct question, you can refer the definition. Okay. Now there is a small homework as well. See, I have already given activity, but similar to that, there is one homework as well which you can try to do, and you have to send it again. Okay. So this is actually like a group work. Again, what you have to do is in your home, if you have a desk, okay, drawing rooms desk or any table, so what you do is using your hand span, okay, using your hand, try to measure the length of your table, okay, length and breadth of your table, or just to measure the length, no need to measure the breadth also, just measure the length, how much amount of hand spans is required, that you need to uh, write here, because not everybody's hand span will be similar. Some of your hand span length will be more, some of your hand span length will be less, depending upon the size of your hand. So whatever it may come, okay, so you just have to measure the width of the table. So what you have to do is you have to write the names of your friends. So all of you would have measured, right? So you can discuss with your friends and write their names here, and how much number of hand spans required for them to measure the length, you can write it here. Okay, so that will be the homework for you. So thank you, children. Stay safe, stay home, stay safe. Okay, so goodbye.